So with the EMG, there's kind of two parts to that too. I'm going to look at the muscle at rest and when the muscle is active.
Okay.
Because it can tell you different things about what's going on, whether it's at rest, if you find something at rest versus when the muscle's active. And this part of the test can also help to determine how long the nerve problem's been going on.
Oh, okay.
So you can kind of tell if it's something more acute or if something's continuing to damage the nerve versus if something has damaged the nerve a long time ago and it just hadn't gotten all the way better. It's kind of more of a chronic injury.
Okay.
All right. So a little stick here. Like that.
Okay. A little prick.
Mm-hmm. So what you hear, that kind of sharp sound is what muscle sounds like. And that's how you know you're in muscle. Because if you were just in like skin or fat, you wouldn't hear anything basically. So muscle has that kind of sharp sound. And then this is at rest. So I'm kind of just listening. Is the muscle have anything going on when you're not making it do anything?
Okay.
So that would be called spontaneous activity.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm going to have you just lightly push against my hand. And that is the muscle that's active. Oh. And with that, I'm kind of looking at how big, those are called motor units.
Okay.
How big they are, how many there are.
Okay.
Push very lightly. Yep. Yep. So that can tell you kind of with the, if it's chronic a little bit, whether it's chronic or acute. Okay. Have y'all learned about trigger points at all?
Yeah.
So interestingly, when you stick the muscle, if you get in a trigger point, especially if it's a trigger point that's active, it will actually make a sound at rest. Oh. But it's very distinctive. It sounds different from what happens when the muscle's deinnervated. Mm-hmm. It's basically if the muscle gets deinnervated, if the nerve isn't getting to it, then that's where you get that spontaneous activity. The muscle will just have this activity that's going on without you making it happen.
Okay.
But also, if you're in a trigger point, you will...
So you got to be mindful of this could be a trigger point, because trigger points are different for everybody, right? They're in the same vicinity, but...
they tend to happen near neuromuscular junctions. I think that's kind of still the current theory. Another thing that you can find that's a normal finding at rest is a fasciculation. Have you ever been sitting in your muscle, like your muscle kind of quivers? Maybe you feel it in your face, like a little jump.
Yeah.
That's called a fasciculation, and they're
like you say, my eyes jumped.
Yeah, it's like the muscle just kind of twitches. That's another thing that you can see on here.
Okay.
But that's the EMG part.
Okay.
Which hand had the tingling in it? Was it the other hand?
This one.
Okay.
So these
let's see. Let's see what they're... Let me go back up here to the... Okay. Let's just see what the nerves do. I'm going to check your hand temperature.
Okay.
It feels like it's warm enough. Your nerves don't test normally if your hand is super cold.
Oh, okay.
They will actually test too slow.
Okay.
So it can look like they're not working right.
Okay.
And
so if it's cold outside, you got to get your patient warm up a little?
Yep.
Okay.
So we go to the sink and run their hand under the sink. It's usually fingers.
Okay.
Because most of the time, people's feet are in their shoes and they just don't get as cold. And I don't record over the toes when I'm doing a test for the legs and feet, so it's usually not as big of a deal. Okay, so this will feel kind of like a little shock. Here we go. A little bigger. All right, so let's do this. That's your median nerve. Let's compare it to your ulnar nerve, because one way that's a good way to determine if you have a nerve problem is to compare one of your nerves to another of your nerves, because it's kind of like you're your own best.
Yeah. So the one that's working right compared to the one that is a culprit.
Yes.
And see if it's a difference.
Because they should all be testing pretty much the same speed. They should all be working at the same speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think your hand is just a little bit cold because they're testing pretty close to the same, so that's good.
Okay.
I don't think you've got.
So if I came in with that complaint and then you tested that and everything was kind of in the same range, then as far as you're concerned,
I would say it was normal.
Everything's normal.
And that's not to say there's not something brewing. It's just not reached the level of severity that shows up on a test.
Right.
Like it's kind of got to get
really bad to see a number. Or
not even really bad. It's just got to reach a certain threshold to show up on the test.
Okay.
Because a lot of times how it starts with a lot of people is you just get occasional tingling.
Got it.
It's not like all the time or every night or every day. And it may stay like that forever.
Right.
You know, or eventually it may start, the frequency may pick up. But if it's only like every once in a while, it's usually not bad enough to show up on a test.
Okay.
But also it's usually not bad enough for someone to go to the doctor about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like they just say, it'll go away.
Because I think that's what happened to my mom. I think she had some problems and then she said it just went away.
Yeah.
And so she had dealt with it, you know.
So, you know, usually by the time people are like, okay, this is really getting out of hand, is when they go to the doctor. And usually that's when it'll show up on the test.
Okay.
You know, when it makes people go to the doctor, it's usually bad enough to show up on a test.
Yeah. So with your specialty, is it similar to like the PTs go to get pelvic health?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of specialties.
So what is this called? Like, what's the name of this specialty?
This is electroneurophysiological testing. I know it's like some ridiculously long word like that. Yeah.
And it's just PTs that do this.
PTs. I'm trying to think if I've heard OTs can get this specialty. Physicians. Maybe
PAs?
chiropractors. PAs. Yep.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of crazy, and it's like they all kind of have their different way of getting the specialty through the Physical Therapy Association, or the American Board of Physical Therapy Specialties, I think is where we get it. It's kind of like with like our licensing board. You have to do a certain number of hours of testing, and then you submit some case studies, and then you take an exam.
Okay.
And that's how you get the specialty for PTs.
Okay. Because isn't it like a couple years? Like, does it take you like maybe 3, 4?
Yeah, let's see.
I think geriatrics does something like that, like 3-5 years type.
It's
or
probably
hours.
different for different specialties, and also it always, you know, it depends on how long it takes you to get your hours.
Okay.
But if you're working 5 days a week, working in geriatrics, you're going to get your hours really fast, as opposed to if you're only doing it like 1 day a week, or, you know. So it just all depends on how many hours a week you spend doing that specialty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know before you used to have to go through a doctor to do any type of PT, but now patients can call PTs on their own 4 times. So do you have to have a doctor referral?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And some of that has probably to do with insurance reimbursement.
Okay. Because I know sometimes you don't need, because I know like with pelvic, you don't need a doctor referral anymore.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be curious, if that's still the case. I mean, I'm just assuming.
Okay.
It looks like our patient's here.
Okay. Cool.
I was about to say, do you have time this
Well, she told me